Hello there everybody and welcome to a new video for Age of Wonders 4. In this one I'll be guiding you through the tomes of the Materium Affinity. I'll be covering the contents of these books, show you their uses, strengths, synergies and all the things in between. So there's a timestamp for each book there, so if you're looking for something in particular you'll find it there. And let's get started with the Tome of Rock. It is, just as many of the Materium tomes, a very versatile one. We gain access to many elements, we gain access to some damage in form of Rock Blast, a single target nuke, 30 damage, not bad for finishing off things, softening up things, really useful, but it is not the best damage spell I've ever seen either. Stone Skin is a single target buff, offering nice resistances at the cost of some spiritual resistance. Here again, single target. It's powerful at what it does, but it's nothing too impressive either. Earthkin is a racial transformation, giving us a small amount of physical resistance, rock camouflage and rock walk, a nice package of advantages at the cost of making your units grow rocks on their body and looking really weird with that. So this is what we can do for all units or against the enemy. We also gain access to the Central Quarry, one hell of a province improvement, churning out lots of production and even more the more quarries we got. A really good early game steroid in terms of pumping up your cities quickly. Obsidian weaponry is something for your heroes. If you have a melee or physical range dude, the dot is really nice. So, the units. I want to talk about the Gargoyle first. The Gargoyle is really cool because it is a flying tier 2 shock unit that's good at surviving. It heals itself when it goes into defensive mode and applies Stone Skin to itself. It can fly, therefore it can cross over obstacles. It has a charge strike. It's good at disrupting the enemy in the backline. Altogether, it's a well-rounded, easily acquirable unit that can be recruited in your cities, and I like it a lot. On top of that, it's like many of your units in this roster, an elemental unit, so it has a wide array of interesting resistances, making it harder to kill than the average summoned unit in many regards. Especially damage over time effects are less effective against these guys. The Lesser Stone Spirit is another nice little elemental guy. He's a fighter. That means he's a little bit less specialized in any direction. He can only inflict some slow on his melee attacks, but he's also able to evolve into a Stone Spirit. I'm going to talk about those later because they pop up in another tome. And yeah, it's a spammable magic origin unit. It's an elemental too. You can fill your armies with it. You can summon it wherever you need it on the map. It's really useful, therefore. And if you keep them alive, they even turn into something way more useful. And they are also very low in upkeep. So let's leave the Tome of Rock and get on over to the Tome of Enchantment. So with this tome, we have a lot of unit enchantment abilities, just like the name would imply. We can also alter our economy in direction of unit recruitment quite hard, with a good improvement of production as well, and we gain access to a really cool golem unit. So let's get started with the unit enchantments. We gain access to spell-tempered shields, which buffs up our shield units by giving them more magic resistance and the ability to spread that on over. I feel like these numbers are a little bit low, but the idea of it is great. I just feel like it could be a +2 on the defense mode, but maybe that's just me and it would be totally overpowered. Either way, this gives a nice bonus to your shield units, so if you use them already, good stuff. Seeker arrows, ranged attackers, any physical ranged attacker loves this thing. +1 range is always very desirable, and therefore I don't think I need to talk much about the Seeker arrows here. Sundering Blades is a little bit more of a complicated thing because it looks not too good at the first glance, but it's actually really good. First off, it makes your melee attackers afflict sundered defenses. 90% chance, that's a lot, which is not only reducing physical resistance, but it also reduces status resistance. So if you're aiming on statuses, this is a really nice thing to note. And it also gives you the Demolisher trait, which enables all your melee units to wreak havoc upon fortifications and stuff. This is amazing and very cheap. You don't need it always, but when you need it, it's really good. And that base thing here, well, it's amplifying the damage of your entire army once you get going. It's ideal for every strategy that wants to have longer fights. So that's what we can do for our units. Awakened Tools is buffing up your city's economy, production, and military production at the cost of some stability. Again, a really nice early game steroid, which enables you to do so much more with your city. In the later stages of the game, those numbers aren't too low either, but you maybe want to have the stability for your tall builds a little bit higher. So the Rune Carver's Camp is the other economy thing that you can go for. Some extra draft. That's really a lot of draft. It also counts as a quarry, and it produces mana out of quarries. I love this. On top of everything, it's a unit deployment location, so you can even use it to churn out your armies. Well, it's just really good because mana producers are always desirable, and some extra unit production never comes bad. Also gives you more the incentive to build more quarries, so your regular production won't suffer too much either. It's a really good province. It's a really good one. And last but not least, the Copper Golem. Another evolving unit, can transform into the Iron Golem. Again, gonna talk about him when the time has come. He's in another book as well. And it's your standard polearm unit with the twist that it's again an elemental, and it's again spammable. It's again very low upkeep and fills up your ranks quite nicely. So these guys are really cool if you want to have a throwaway unit with a nice payoff if you keep them alive and you don't have access to native spear units. Just what you need. All right, let's get on over to the Tome of Artificing. That's the first tier 2 tome. So here we go a lot for unit enhancement and siege. It's really a lot about siege with a splash of units. So let's go over the unit enhancers first. Artisan armaments, 30% crit for your melee units. End of the story. It's just that good. I love this. This is just a pure bonus, which is, yeah, self-explaining, I guess. Siege magic is another unit enchantment, and it flat out increases the damage of your battle mages and supporters, even if you don't need the siege pots in it. It is already a flat out bonus, which I love about this. But on top of that, your battle mages and supporters can all of a sudden destroy fortifications as well, and they count as siege breakers, so they make the sieges go faster. Amazing little enchantment. It's a little bit suboptimal if you don't go for sieges, but if you have to play against a tall player, really good stuff. So we also gain access to bolt repeaters. I'm going to talk about the construct bolt repeaters spell first, and then about artisan fortification. Bolt repeaters are a siege project, and these guys are just AoE machines, so you can fling out 10 damage on a really high distance, turn by turn, and they also demolish obstacles. You can have, by artisan fortifications, you also the ability to build those bolt repeaters as a defensive measure, on top of extra fortification health, and the bolt repeaters are really cool. They are much better than they look at the first glance because it's a lot of AoE inside these guys, and it's low cooldown. You can do that really often. So here's a reason why they are called repeaters after all. Then we got access to the Golem Mine, which is a mine that's producing city building production by quarry and has an iron golem for you when you fight in your territory. It's a nice extra thing, not as powerful as the other province improvements, but I really like the fact that you can create yourself a nice little extra income out of that. And then there's the Iron Golem. So the Iron Golem is your typical tier 3 shield unit, nice damage on it, highly resilient because Golem, and most importantly, they can spread status resistance when they defend right next to your folks. Their defensive mode has a little bit of a bonus effect there, and they're just highly resilient. They are amazing in what they do. They can be recruited in your cities, standard issue units, and yeah, if you need a defensive unit, they're just here for you, with all the elemental resistances a golem has to offer. Tier 2, Tome of Winds. So this is a very utility heavy thing with a splice of disruption and really cool units. So we gain a lot of cool things. So first off, Windborne Scouts. It makes your scouts go flying and is probably the least impressive spell there. If you have some scheme going on where you use your scouts for more military purposes may be quite good, but I personally find this quite neglectable. Abducting Cyclone, though, is a spell that is really all about the utility part here. So you can pull an enemy into a certain direction with that. It's very, very versatile. You can use it offensive or defensive, and it's a terribly annoying spell to deal with. And I love it for that. We gain also Dust Storm, another battle spell, debuffing the enemy 1 hex wide with Blind. Blind is really cool because it debuffs heavily ranged attacks, but also it destroys retaliation attacks. So really good to smack that on the enemy pole arms and stuff like that and watch them melt away. It's a really, really good spell all by its own. And on top of that, we got Favorable Winds, a map spell which allows your army on the water to just regain their entire turn. Costly, only usable once per turn, but amazing when you have a lot of water on the map to utilize and play around, because it gives you the ability to pay mana for a second turn. That is a lot. Now, best for the end. Here, the units. So we gain the Zephyr Archer, a tier 3 archer unit with a nice damage on its own. Zephyr Shot is, well, you know, kind of an AoE spell. It's at least 2 targets with a hell of a damage, high range, uses up all the actions, but nothing bad about it. The really cool part about these guys is they are slippery. That means they don't provoke an attack of opportunity when they move away. So these guys can always shoot, and therefore they're really, really cool. And the Wind Rager is another elemental fighter unit that is, for one, growing stronger when it's attacking. Always a nice. I love Frenzy. And for another, it can just displace enemies around them. It has a relatively high cooldown, but you can use that to rattle up the enemy's front line or shake out people out of your backline. One way or another, these guys are amazingly versatile in what they can do for you. Really good tier 2 unit, and with being tier 2, they are all, again, quite payable in their upkeep, offering a lot of disruption potential. So, this book has also the Avenging Winds thing for you here, pushing back enemies when they attack. It's a relatively low chance, but I found it quite fun. The Tome of Winds is really, really powerful in terms of providing mobility utilities and debuffs, which Materium usually struggles with. It's really, really cool to splice that in. Tier 3 Transmutation. So this book offers a lot of offensive and defensive options, and it also offers a lot of economy things. So for one, we gain Melt Armor. 1 hex radius melts defenses and deals a lot of fire damage. This is a really, really powerful spell. The first powerful spell that we got here in the roster. We can transmute the mana income of one of our cities into gold production and food. Really cool if you don't need that mana. And we can enchant our units with that one with Adaptive Armor, which gives them more magical resistance whenever they get hit by that, and status resistance whenever they get hit by magical damage, really making your tanky units even more tanky. And Steel Skin as a minor race transformation, offering some much needed defenses again, offering though also a weakness against lightning, because steel. So the Transmuter is for me the personal highlight in this roster. It's a recruitable battle mage unit, which is, for one, sundering the enemy defense and giving bolstered defense. That's the stuff the Industrious faction wants and transforms into buffs, by the way. And most importantly, they got a 1 hex radius stun spell. Yeah, this is amazing. 1 hex radius wide. And that alone is all the reason you need to have these guys, because the Petrify spell is just hidden like a truck. And the rest of their kit isn't bad either. So let's get on over to the next tome, and that's the one of Terramancy. So Terramancy is a lot about, like the name implies, terraforming and working with the terrain. We got a lot of siege power in it, and like we would have assumed, we can also change the map with it quite well. So let's start with the sieging and the damage options first. Seismic Shock damage spell, 1 hex radius, slowing, 25 damage is quite a lot, but most importantly, it melts obstacles, 50 damage to obstacles, so it's one hell of a siege spell. We also have Earth Shatter, which is offering you a option to transform a province into rocky province, also damaging the enemy. Keep in mind though that you can use this also for your own area to make the province fit in a quarry, for example, because rocky provinces are the ones you need for all the quarries. So you can use this also to benefit from it. And then there's Tremor Ritual, which just, just destroys things on the enemy's side. One hell of a siege project because it destroys the enemy's defenses so profoundly. So that's all the things that you can use for siege and terraforming. We also gain Crushing Earth, which is just killing a tier 3 unit or lower if we're lucky, or stunning them and dealing a lot of damage to them. The downside of the spell is tier 3 or lower, so no use at all against high tier units. The benefits, it's just massively destructive against whatever it does, because either you're rid of it or it's substantial damage. I love this spell for what it does. And of course you can summon the Stone Spirit. So with the Stone Spirit you have the ability to immobilize the enemy. It's a 2 hex radius point blank AoE thing. It's not too much damage, but again, it's destroying obstacles as well. And he can teleport around and deal damage while doing so. And of course, he's also quite good at fighting for the first time, utilizing also extra damage against immobilized and slowed units. This is again one of those units that doesn't have too much of a wow on it, but if you put 3 of these guys right next to each other and let them do their thing, they do what they do quite well, and they're hard to kill, and that's just what this is all about. So we also gain the Leaden Blows for our heroes, but this is, well, a little bit sad that we don't have that as a unit enchantment, but it's really good at what it does, immobilizing the enemies and just doing some more damage. Tier 4 Golden Realm. Oh boy. The Tome of the Golden Realm is one hell of a tome, probably one of the most powerful in the entire roster. It introduces the gilding mechanic and introduces a lot of income for your empire, but that's not a big surprise, I suppose. So we gain access to luxury markets. That is a city structure which allows us to spend our money twice per turn, so we can buy stuff there. We gain the reagent refinery, which gives us more gold for all the magic materials we got, and the Bazaar of Wonders, which gives us more gold for each adjacent province improvement. So this thing is just cranking out gold like crazy. The gilding mechanic is pretty simple. If an enemy is gilded, you gain 20 gold per unit tier if you kill them while they are still gilded. We gain the ability to have that as a debuff spell in form of Gilding Blast. We also gain a race transformation, which is not on the gilding mechanic, but it's similar. Or we can turn our race into gold touch units, magic resistance, and extra gold income per population. An amazing thing, because it's no downsides, and magic resistance is always nice to have. And we gain the gold golem, the king of gilding. This is one... Actually, it's a spear unit. It's called a mythic unit, but actually it's most resembling a polearm unit. And this guy is gilding enemies when he hits them. He can deal massive damage to gilded enemies, 45 damage if you are gilded, point blank AoE 30 hex, and heals himself whenever he kills something with that thing. And on top of that, he has the ability to gild everybody who's attacking him, and the golden retaliation. There's a broken tooltip, sadly, but basically, if this guy defends, he has infinite retaliation. So yeah, this unit is all you'd wish for, and again, it's an elemental unit coming with all the resistances that go for it. So the Golden Realm is all about gold, making the best out of it, and the Gold Golem is just an amazing unit. The Tome of the Crucible is the AoE tome. You know, if you want AoE, this is where you got to go to. So let's talk about the AoE burst and then about some other things that you got there. So Lava Burst, 2 hex radius, 40 damage, burn, slow, and everything on fire. This is one of the most destructive combat spells in the entire game. It's amazing. It's really, really cool. We also gain Meteor Shower as a combat enchantment, flinging down meteors every turn, dealing damage to the enemy, physical and fire damage lasting for 3 turns. It's random, but it's really powerful at what it does. And we also gain, as another AoE option, the Meteor Arrows, which, yeah, splash damage for your... It's splash damage for your archers, so they deal fire damage to the target and adjacent units. Keep in mind it's only the fire damage which is inflicted to the adjacent units, but it's still pretty powerful. And it's also friendly fire because it doesn't stay out of its only enemies, so take care of that. You also gain Demolisher traits with that, as if it wasn't good enough already. So finally, your ranged archers can do this as well. So Pyroclastic Eruption is destructive terraforming. You transform a province into desolate terrain, which is one of the most useless province terrains that you can have, and it also deals some damage. And to make us real happy, we gain a defensive structure in form of the Fortified Crucible, lots of fortification health, and your battlements are empowered by that. Really good stuff. Topped off by the Great Foundry, which utilizes mines in your city a lot by cranking out more unit production and gold. But at this point, we really don't need much more. Also, you can have the Meteor Strikes for your hero. It's really a lot of AoE in here. And at the end of the road comes the Tome of the Creator. So this is also one hell of a book. So first off, we gain Tectonic Shatter. And this is a battlefield-wide damage spell, which has a chance to stun enemies and a 50% chance to destroy obstacles. So one hell of a siege breaker. This spell alone is really impressive at what it does, but you also gain access to another unit enchantment exclusive to elementals. We've seen a lot of elementals in this book, in this path here, so they all will gain Undying, which makes them revive after 2 turns with 50% of their total HP. Only once per battle, but geez, this is so annoying to deal with, because that means your elemental units are not only expendable, but they also come back. Really, really, really powerful. We also gained the Titan of the Earth, a tier 5 combat summon. This alone is really, really cool, because there aren't too many combat summons. This guy's meant to be summoned only in battle. And adjacent enemies lose defense and retaliation. He's one heavy shock trooper, and he also has a super nuts point blank AoE spell, and you can summon this fella every fight if you have the mana for that. This is one of the strongest combat summon spells of the game, and it's yours if you have this book. At the end of the road, we have also the Earth Shatter Engines, which are... Sadly, we don't see how much obstacle damage they deal, but they knock everybody out of defense and retaliation, slow, and yeah, well, it must be annoying to play against that, because basically they just rattle up any form of defenses that you want to have and leave you defenseless. Really powerful stuff. So, last thing here, we gain also the Ancient of the Earth for your hero, making him just, 30% more damage. No more mounts, but who needs mounts if you are large? Yeah, it's just a little bit of an icing on the cake. The Tome of the Creator doesn't look like much, but really the T5 summon is a lot, and those spells here are nothing to sneeze at either. So that's the Materium Tome collection. I hope you liked this video. Feel free to leave me your comments down below if you see any other synergies that I haven't mentioned here. I'd be really, really happy to hear from you. I love when the comment section is full of good tips. Also, feel free to leave a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and be so kind if you want to see more like that. There is a playlist link down there, and yeah, full of Age of Wonders 4 info videos. Have a wonderful day, and I hope I'll see you on the next video.